All right, folks, I think we're about ready to get started. I'm Mike. Kane and I publish the Austin Monitor. We, along with our partners at KUT and Glass House Policy, are putting these things on in hope of getting you all more informed about the candidates here. And part of it is sort of throwing it out to you to come up with the questions. So if you submitted a question online and we picked you to ask your question tonight, and I haven't yet gotten to talk to you, please do come up and see me. I've got your questions here. We go over the rules real fast. Well, I guess for everybody, the rules. The questioner will ask the question. Candidates will each have a minute 30 to respond to to the questions that are asked initially. Then the person asking the question will get 30 seconds to rebut the candidate's statements, and then the candidates will get 30 seconds to respond to that. That's how it'll work. There'll be no opening statements, but 2 minutes worth of closing statements once we get to that point. So with that, I will welcome Jimmy Flannigan and Council Member Don Zimmerman. And I'll note that microphone up there is where you're going to come up and speak. Our folks tell us you got to be kind of up on it to do it. So with that, Matt Weldon. Matt, you're first. Sorry to surprise you like that.
Thank you for the opportunity. So my question, my premise is that Austin has benefited greatly from a reputation for environmental leadership. So my question is, what actions would you take to burnish Austin's bona fides in energy and environmental leadership?
Jimmy, we'll start with you.
It's a great question. I agree that Austin has taken a very strong leadership position in environmental protection. District 6 especially has a key critical role in that, since we include a lot of the Balcones Canyonland Preserve, which needs to be protected, and Austin Energy takes a leadership position, and much of its green energy portfolio is now on par with the cost of non-green energies. And I think we should be celebrating that fact and encouraging that fact. We also have to continue to expand our water infrastructure resources. We don't want to end up with another empty lake again, and so as we think about our reusable water system, also called Purple Pipe, or allowing folks to do rainwater capture or gray water systems, these are all critical infrastructure components that are key to our environmental protection. And on that water side, if we do that job correctly, we don't have to build a very expensive, wasteful, long-term pipeline to some other city's water infrastructure and take another community's water. We have enough water here if we use it wisely. This environmental protection for the city of Austin is key because it is part of what makes Austin an amazing city. There have been proposals like building a road through the Canyonlands that I think are a terrible idea. Not only would it destroy much of the Canyonlands Preserve, but it would also increase the risk of wildfires. And so we have to be very careful how we interact with this green space to protect it for future generations.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember.
All right, thanks. Thanks for the question. I ran 2 years ago on a campaign of abolishing Austin Energy, and I think that's still a wise course to take. Let me just point to a couple of outrages. There are several, but the biggest one probably that Austin Energy did was the Northeast Texas biomass wood-burning power plant. You might remember that passed City Council 7-0. There's only one council member who has ever actually read and studied that wood-burning chip plant, and that would be me. So most of you don't realize that you are now losing about $58 million per year for a boondoggle power plant that produces basically no energy. But it gets better. Every year that increases about 3%, such that in year 20, about 17 years from now, you're going to be paying about $84 million for that boondoggle power plant that produces zero energy. And see, this is what happens when you have a government monopoly. If a private business like Enron did this, they would be busted, right? Somebody would be prosecuted, company would go out of business. But if Austin Energy does these kind of horrific boondoggles, you just get stuck with the bill. So let me talk quickly about Austin Water. Does anybody know that the reclaimed water is scheduled to lose about $2.4 million? We have to do projects that conserve and lower our water bills. So we're out of time. 90 seconds is tough.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you bearing with us. Mr. Weldon, you got 30 seconds to respond there.
Okay, 30 seconds. At this point, only Mr. Zimmerman seemed to
Microphone, yeah.
Only Mr. Zimmerman seemed to oppose my premise that the Austin's reputation as an environmental leader is beneficial. And I guess I would take objection to the example that he provided, which is the wood chip burning plant, which was largely opposed by the environmental community. It really came into action because of Austin Energy's leadership at that point in time, and the fact that there was a perceived risk of not having a dispatchable energy source, even though I would posit that ERCOT provides that service.
Afraid that's the 30 seconds.
That
If
is
you want to
not
ask a
enough
quick
time.
question, we can get you in there.
So my question is to please explain why the wood chip plant, again, is a fossil, it mimics a fossil fuel plant. So it was elected and as a resource to build because of that behavior. I'll just let you two
Sure.
discuss that
Want me to
point.
go first?
Jimmy should go first.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Flannigan.
Let me just address this notion of privatizing Austin Energy. Austin Energy makes a profit. It keeps your property taxes low to the tune of 20%. So the moment that you try and privatize Austin Energy, your property taxes to pay for police, fire, and EMS primarily will go up by 20%. And I don't think it's a bad thing for the citizens of Austin who had the foresight so many years ago to start an electric utility to just give it away. It's owned by the citizens of Austin, and that's why it's good for the community.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember.
Thank you. So go back to Mr. Weldon's point. To be fair to the elected council that voted 7-0, they were told by the city staff that they had to do it. It's something that I want constituents and voters to understand. The city staff runs this city. And the way the city staff runs the city and the way they got this terrible biomass plant through is they control the information. So the people that voted for it 7-0 never got to see what they were actually voting on. I'm the only one who has seen it. So we need to stop trusting staff blindly and stop voting for whatever they put in front of us.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer Houlihan is next, and I'll take this moment to ask if you guys have come in late. If you have submitted a question, we picked you. Please come see me. I got him here. Houli.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight. My name is Jennifer Houlihan. I'm here representing Austin music people. And we're here in the live music capital of the world. Music is a $1.8 billion economic engine. And in the last 4 years, we've lost 1,200 jobs, primarily in our non-festival music economy. So I would like to hear how you would address the concerns of this industry as the city is growing, but the industry seems to be contracting.
Councilmember, you go first.
Okay, sure. Thanks for the question. Let me say this: we have a big music industry and a lot of musicians, a lot of professionals that work. But I'm not comfortable with separating out one segment of our economy. We also have a lot of lawyers here. We have a lot of high-tech people. We have a lot of physicians, and to separate out one group and say, as the mayor has done, well, we're going to have some special programs or some special subsidies or some, as they call it, aid and assistance. All that does is shift cost, from one segment of the city to another. If we single out musicians for help or some kind of subsidies, someone else has to pay. So it really ends up being cost shifting from one group to another. And the solution really, we must lower costs for everyone. Everyone. So may not be the answer you're looking for. We could have a line of people all asking for relief because the cost of living here is out of control. So you could imagine how there could be many groups, hey, we need relief too, we need relief too, we need relief too. So I'm focused more on lowering the cost of living for everyone.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flannigan.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your question. I think it's a real challenge for Austin as we move forward, as we think about what made our city such a wonderful place, what brought a lot of us here in the first place, and what people want to see in their city. I do support Mayor Adler's omnibus resolution for the music industry. I think a lot of that stuff is absolutely critical, and the vast majority of it has no fiscal impact whatsoever. A lot of it is code changes and ensuring that when new properties open next to existing venues, that they don't then get to shut down that venue because they claim they didn't know it was a venue. But a lot of it really is the affordability concern and the lack of abundant housing in our community, the fact that rents in District 6 might be low compared to the rest of the region, but there aren't a lot of music venues out here for those musicians to play at. And transportation is a huge issue too. You know, my opponent had an opportunity to strike a compromise on the Uber and Lyft deal, and he opted not to. And so we lost what was essentially a really important service to musicians in our community as they try to get their equipment, not just their bodies, but their equipment to and from the venues. I think it's important to protect a lot of the arts, to protect music, just as we protect parks and we protect libraries. You know, this is about quality of life. This is about what makes Austin such a special place to all of us. And I think it's exactly the job of our elected officials to look out for the whole community, including music.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Julian, 30 seconds.
Yes, the jobs that were lost were primarily in the primary music sector, where we seem to be seeing some growth and stability. Our saving grace really is the festival economy. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about the proposed expansion of the convention center.
That's a great question. The way I've looked at the convention center is to consider that the conventions are competing. The convention centers are a national business. And so Austin may be competing with San Antonio or even Las Vegas, Chicago. There are many convention centers. I've seen some data that indicates that there have been many, many cities that have grown their convention centers, and we are behind other cities, but the market appears to be too big. We have too much vacant space. I don't support additional subsidies and increasing taxes to expand our convention center.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flannigan.
I don't support the expansion of the convention center. There's no evidence anywhere in any city nationwide that expanding a convention center expands your economic activity. In fact, what it will do in Austin is shut down some key music venues. A friend of mine, Jason White, owns the Brass House, which is one of those venues that would be shut down. That's an LGBT-owned and a veteran-owned business that I think the city should be supporting. It's a business that gives back to the community, that opens its doors at no cost to community groups. I mean, these are the types of locally owned businesses that we need to support, and you have private businesses like the JW Marriott expanding their convention space.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Al and Vanessa Saria. Did y'all decide who wants to come on up?
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Good catch.
So my question comes from the standpoint, so I'm a 34-year resident of the city of Austin. I'm a tax-paying resident of the Canyon Creek neighborhood, so I'm one of Don's neighbors. I'm also a city employee, so I am a senior technologist at Austin Energy, not an executive. We call them the Weebies. Weebie here is they keep cycling out. So my question comes from this standpoint. So government has three primary roles: collect fees, collect taxes, provide service. So what do each of you feel is the correct ratio of city services and staff to a growing population that Austin is?
Mr. Flannigan, you go first.
Man, it's there's so much in your question. It's very good. I would say I don't think that collecting fees and taxes is the role of government. It's the thing you do to provide those services. And when you think about the public safety being obviously the most critical service that a city provides, and it is 70% of the general fund, so it is the vast majority of what we spend, and I could spend an hour or 2 hours talking about how to improve public safety. And so that last 30%, parks, libraries, health and human services, serving our underserved communities, these are all critical issues. When you think about the role of city government and you acknowledge that public safety is first and it's why it's the biggest piece of the pie, then it's also about providing libraries and providing parks. And the ratio is ultimately, once you feel that your city's safe, and in many ways Austin is safe, it has the lowest violent crime in the nation. And I think we can do some good work. We need to do some good work on property crime. District 6 faces some unusual property crime issues. But there are fiscally responsible ways to address those needs so that we can maintain a park system and a library system and, that enhances our quality of life, and a health and human services system that can provide help to underserved communities, that can provide after-school programs to kids to help them stay out of trouble. There's a lot of work that goes on for a very small slice of the pie in the city budget. But once you fix the public safety part first, then you can start to expand the rest of the services.
Thank you, sir. Council member.
Yes. Thanks for the question. I also disagree a little bit with the premise. If you back up to a broader view, really the purpose of government is to protect your political liberties, protect your private property rights, protect you from being assaulted, kidnapped, what have you. I think we said the founders of the country, that we institute government so that we can protect our liberties. We just passed $970 million budget, and my objection is, I voted against the budget, by the way. I think it spends too much money and delivers not enough service for the amount of money spent. We have about a 21-point metric of performance, for our city manager. So whenever we pass this huge budget, we say, all right, here's the metrics we're going to take care of. Our biggest problem is transportation. And there are only 2 points out of 21 that deal with transportation, and we fail those. So I don't think the priorities have been set correctly in the city. And I don't see any restraint on the growth of government. I'm looking for something that says, look, as the city grows, population, inflation, let's have some metric that says we're going to stay within this budget and not spend more. We don't have any spending restraint or any spending controls. And I think that's why the city has become so unaffordable. And by the way, last year, I voted against the budget. It was 10-1. Through some hiccup, we voted again, and Councilmember Troxclair voted with me, so it was 9-2. And this year, Councilmember Gallo voted with me, voting against the budget. So I'm up to 3 votes now against the budget.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sari, you want to?
Yeah, so kind of a follow-up question for each of you. So, because if I heard correctly, our budget is now almost $1 billion bigger than both Houston and San Antonio, which even I found shocking. So for each of you, I'd like to know, when you look at city services, what are the top 3 departments that you would look to help enhance? And what are the top 3 departments in the city you would look to sunset?
Mr. Flannigan.
Well, it's very difficult to compare the budgets of different cities. Not every city has a utility. Not every city has a water utility. Not every city has a waste utility. Not every city treats the airport or has as a successful airport as we have. So the comparisons between cities are very difficult and often completely irrelevant. But the enhancement really is police department, because that's the #1 job that we have to do right. It's also the #1 department in the general fund by a mile.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember.
What about sunsetting?
I ran out of time.
Okay.
You want to offer one department you'd sunset, Jimmy? You want to offer up? Okay.
Well, and of course, Mr. Flanagan's right, public safety is the big thing, and I would like to see an enhancement in our property crime resolution rate. We have an abysmal 15%. Our property crime rate ought to be 80%. For Sunset, that's the easy one for me. Austin Energy, of course, is a really big one, and that's why our budget looks so much bigger than other cities. Mm-hmm. And my favorite one to eliminate would be the Economic Development Department. Let's get rid of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Linda Elmas. While Linda's making her way up here, I'll remind those of you that have come in late that I've got your questions. If you submitted questions and were picked, come see me.
Thank you, gentlemen. I have a question for both of you. Number one is, my daughter just graduated from Vandergrift High School, went to 4 Points, and not only I, but the kids have said, what if there's a fire? What if there's a shooting? There's one way in, one way out. You've got apartment complexes, you've got a church, etc. The traffic there is unbearable. And to Mr. Zimmerman, you've been our councilman for 2 years. What have you done to help this situation? And I'll ask Mr. Flannigan the same thing, although he's not an incumbent. But the other thing is, one thing I want to say, caveat to this, is that I have called your office, Mr. Zimmerman, sent a personal email to you regarding why should I vote for you? As why should I vote for Mr. Flannigan? And I never got a response, which I felt was pretty, I don't know the word, but I was upset with that I did not get a response from your own staff or from you. And
Let's let
if
these
you
folks
could-
answer.
Yeah.
Thanks. Councilmember, I do believe you go first.
Terrific, thanks. Thank you for the question. Let me apologize. We are a little bit overwhelmed. We have a lot of council work we're still doing. We have another meeting coming up this Thursday. I'm not able to answer 100% of the inquiries that come in. We're probably at 95, 98%. And so, yeah, sometimes it becomes very difficult to get to everything. But to quickly answer your question, we've been trying to sort down. I've got 2 pages of information right here of really remarkable accomplishments, and I've been trying to limit it down to 2 pages of the top things that we've done. Let me go to the road quickly. This is a huge issue. Pam Wagoner, LISD
yes.
president, came into my office. We discovered that she has been working on that road to go behind
For
3M.
many years, yes.
For, you said the key word, for many years. The environmentalists are fanatical in stopping any kind of road going behind 3M or anywhere close to BCP areas. That's the problem. You can't get a road in there. It's got nothing to do with me. It has to do with the extreme environmentalism we have. I proposed a road called Firebreak Parkway that was widely ridiculed. And in fact, that road was proposed by the city in 1984. That was over 30 years ago. There
My
should have been a road through there 30 years ago.
But my question
And
wasn't,
let's get him to
Okay, I'll
get
ask
30
him.
seconds in a minute. Mr. Flannigan.
The issue at Vandergrift and 4 Points Middle School campus complex is a very scary one. I think a lot of folks who attend those schools are living in Steiner Ranch, which is not necessarily in the city, but they fear that same wildfire one way in, one way out problem. The moment that I heard the 3M property was up for sale, I contacted the mayor's office and the transportation department. So I've been working on the actual only solution we're going to have for that, which is to negotiate with 3M for right-of-way during the sale of their property so that we can connect the campus complex to 620 through 4 Points Drive. That's the work that I've been doing, very similar to the work that I did on Anderson Mill Road with my Northwest Austin Coalition Group, which is to organize your community, reach out to the actual ways things get built in this town, and then find a solution. And I got $5.5 million for Anderson Mill Road in the transportation bond, and we're going to find a solution for the campus complex, and that's how we're going to get these roads built. And I have to add, Ms. Elmas, that I feel your pain on the lack of communication, because I get regularly emails from constituents in District 6 that tell me that they're not getting any response from their council member. And it's not just a one-off thing. And I want to apologize on behalf of the future of good governance, that this is something that we're going to fix. I can guarantee it.
okay, I've got it.
Thank you, sir. Another 30 seconds for you, ma'am.
Yeah, I didn't get an answer from you, Councilman, except that it's been a long-term issue, and the school was not there in 1984. The school was built within the last, 8 years? Second, if you are my councilman, why should I not get a response from your office? That to me is saying you don't count me as one of your district people, a citizen who may or may not vote for you, but if I can't rely on a call back or a message back, I don't know what your plans are.
Councilmember.
Thank you for the chance. I appreciate the political advertisement, but that was a political advertisement.
For who?
For my opponent.
It is?
It was a political advertisement for my opponent. I am the only council member that has a local district office open 5 days a week, staff. You can walk in and talk to them, and I'm there on Fridays. And that's been widely advertised. Hang on. We have handled 1,000 people in this office. We have completed over 200 constituent access forms, CAFs. We have the best constituent service in this city,
Thank you, sir.
bar none.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flannigan.
Well, sometimes I think it's instructive to let my opponent speak, because it really shows the type of bullying that happens from the dais. This is not just a one-off example. There's been bullying for many people that have come to speak in public. And again, I want to apologize for how you've been treated tonight.
Yeah, and just one last thing.
I'm sorry, ma'am, that doesn't fit the
Okay,
format. I
thank you very
apologize.
much.
Thank you for your questions. Jack Murray. Mr. Murray? And you got 3 questions on here. I'll ask you to pick one.
Hi, gentlemen. Thanks a lot for allowing us to do this. It's really a great opportunity. Is this thing on okay? I guess just a quick comment is that I know there's been a lot of conversation about Austin and, what we need to do, but I'm much more concerned about District 6 because I live in District 6. So this is what I'm doing, ask you a question about District 6. I'm a retired guy. I want to live in the city. I don't want to have to move, but my taxes go up. And the Anderson Road that you talked about has been a chronic problem for 10 years. My question is, all the taxes I pay, which are going up about 4% this year, how much money leaves my tax base and goes into the city, and how much comes back that same year and gets stuff done? Because nothing's going on.
Thank you, sir. Before you guys answer, I want to note that we're going to have a question specifically about Anderson Mill Road coming up here, so you can dodge around that if you'd like.
Thanks, Mike.
Mr. Flannigan, I believe it's your turn to go first.
It's something that my opponent likes to talk about a lot because, we do live in District 6, but District 6 did not exist before, and technically it doesn't exist now. I mean, when we think about where the money's being spent, I spend time outside of District 6. I want to make sure that when I go to the Arboretum and go shopping, that it's safe to park my car there, just like it would be safe to park my car at Lakeline Mall. The same thing goes for road construction. The same thing goes for parks. I go to parks that aren't in District 6. It's a citywide benefit, and we should treat it as such. Also, the districts were not drawn in order to capture where money should be spent. It's not a very good measure. But more importantly, if we're trying to be fiscally responsible with the money, I think first thing I would support what Council Member Gallo proposed with expanding the senior and disabled homestead exemption, the flat rate that she proposed up to $91,000. I would support that. And I want to support expanding efforts like my Anderson Mill Road Corridor study, which should save taxpayers about $1 million. And when District 6 can do a lot of the work itself, we don't have to raise the taxes to do the work that we need to get done.
Thank you, sir. Council member.
Well, the reason that you're getting taxed out of your house and home from the Austin side is because Austin simply spends too much money. And the unfairness of the way money is distributed is best illustrated by what we pointed out a year ago. We did a careful study of where the capital improvement project money is going, for instance, roads and infrastructure, and people were shocked. It took us about 3 months to get out of the bureaucracy where the money was going, because remember, in the old council, we had a government of downtown, for downtown, by downtown. There was nothing for the suburbs. So when we finally got the numbers, District 6 was getting less than 1%. We're 10% of the city, we got less than 1%. Now, the city bureaucracy controls these numbers. So I objected to this publicly. Some of my colleagues talked about it. So we said, look, we need to get some equity here. Councilmember Troxclair and myself and a few others proposed 5%. Let's have a 5% minimum on the capital improvement projects to make sure at least 5% of the money goes to each district. Of course, it's impossible to get them all equal. The mayor doesn't like this idea because he calls it ward politics. So we weren't able to get that passed. Now this year, the spending increased up to 1.4%, but it's abysmal. But remember, that's controlled by city staff. We have never been offered a conversation, and city staff has never taken council input on what that balance of spending should be.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Murray, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, when this 10-1 council proposal came up, I voted for it with the full understanding that I was going to get representation from my home and my property value. But what I've heard tonight is it's more about the big city problems and the airports and the music, and I want to have representation from my district. And so I'm hoping that you guys will do that, and if you want to comment on it, that's great.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flannigan.
Sure. Well, you need a council member that can understand the citywide issues because every council member votes on every issue. You can't just abstain on every issue that comes before council like my opponent does. He abstains 10 times more than any other council member, and that leaves our voice going unheard. But very quickly, I want to talk about this divide by 10 concept, which inevitably wastes money in other districts. In no sense, in no way is that a fiscally responsible way to spend our money. We should spend the money where the needs are and don't spend the money if there are no needs.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember.
Let me talk quickly about abstentions. I'm going to answer the abstention accusation with 2 words, pilot knob. Anybody remember pilot knob? Pilot knob is typical of the way city staff puts something in front of council that has misinformation or missing information, and they say, here, vote for this. And I said, look, where's the money going for this subsidized housing? Nobody answered it, so I abstained. Now, I believe Brian Rogers has filed a lawsuit against the city council for violating the Open Meetings Act. There's a lot of wisdom in my abstentions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
So we've exhausted the folks that are here, so I'm going to ask some of the questions that we got online. I think we might use this 30 seconds rebuttal period for you guys to respond to each other.
Delightful.
I will ask that y'all be nice. The first question is, how should Anderson Mill Road be improved? Council member, I believe it's your turn to go first.
First thing you need to know about the Anderson Mill project is that the city bureaucracy knows more about the problems with Anderson Mill. They have forgotten more about the problems than my opponent knows. They know where the wrecks are, where the crashes are. They know that it's dangerous, and they have chosen not to fix it. I'm going to say another thing quickly. I've now heard my opponent claim several times that it was his work that got money put into the bond for the Anderson Mill Road project. That is a false statement. The reason that there's money in the bond for Anderson Mill is because I put it there. The reason I had the political power to put it there is because the voters in Travis County and Austin defeated the downtown courthouse bond. Anybody remember that? That boondoggle, downtown courthouse boondoggle? Because you voted against it, I stood against that, and that's what gave me the political credibility to have money in this bond. And so that's the reason we have money. We have 3 projects in the bond, and there's no particular amount. What we did in an agreement I made with Robert Good, I agreed with him we should be flexible on the amounts because we don't know what contributions we might get from TxDOT or from Williamson County. So there's $30 million included. That includes some amount of money in Anderson Mill that hasn't yet been determined. We'll find that out later. But the city staff knows about the problems. They have chosen not to fix it until now.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flannigan.
It is a fact that Anderson Mill Road is included in the bond because of the work that I did with the Northwest Austin Coalition, that I worked with the community to get Anderson Mill included in the Mobility ATX plan. That's how that road got included on the mayor's desk. And you will go back and look at the record that when the bond was first proposed by the mayor, Anderson Mill Road was included because I worked with the mayor's staff to do it. Also, the $17 million for Palmer, the $7.5 million for 4 Points, and the $5.5 million for Anderson Mill Road are in the bond. They are defined amounts of money. And when the council member was arguing against the bond or for the bond, I'm not quite sure because he abstained when it came right down to it, he was very concerned about the numbers being specific. So I'm not entirely sure what the council member is talking about. What I do want to say, because your question was, what should we do? The corridor study that I put together involved hundreds of residents along Anderson Mill Road. Multiple public meetings, online forums, online tools to get public input on what people are actually experiencing along the corridor. My opponent, when given an opportunity to spend money through the quarter-cent fund from Cap Metro, held no public meetings to ask the community what they wanted with that money, just decided by fiat that he was going to spend over $1 million on a right turn lane on Anderson Mill Road. And when I talked to the community, that was not the number one priority. The number one priority was the safety issue. That I had community leaders, I had neighborhood leaders upset that their disabled children couldn't get to the bus stop because they had to walk through a ditch to get to the one bus stop we have for the 383. That's the process that we need to follow once the bond is passed.
Thank you, sir. 30 seconds, Mr. Council member.
Thank you. Alex Reyna is a registered professional engineer with experience in traffic engineering. He joined the coalition and quit on the first meeting. I'm going to read what he says about Mr. Flannigan's claims. Whatever study Jimmy is talking about is worthless because I only attended one meeting and it was an intro to the coalition. He doesn't have a professional engineer on board to validate the process he had done. Also, the city had already identified improvements needed along Anderson Mill Road, but it was always on the back burner because we never had representation like we now have with you. Speaking of me.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flannigan.
Well, I'm not going to respond to completely unfounded texts read from my opponent's phone. There's absolutely no verification of that. I had meetings at length with these people, and so if the council member is going to treat me this way, imagine how he will treat you. Think about how he has treated you from the dais and attacked constituents as they've come to speak. We need real results for this district, not just attacks. You cannot claim not getting something done is getting something done.
Thank you, sir. The woman who dropped off this question didn't get your name, but you're next.
Thank you. Let me know if you can't hear me. My name is Paula Sabersula, District 6. And I just want to ask a question about the utility. Do all cities own their utility? How many do, how many don't? Is it normal that we do that? Do we have to do it? And are we accounting for all the money that goes into that utility? Do we know where it's going, how it's spent, who it's funding?
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember, I believe it's your turn to go first.
Okay, sure. The other big city that has a municipally owned electric company would be San Antonio. Houston, Dallas, most of the major cities are now going to a competitive choice. So they're getting rid of their energy monopoly. That makes sense because we have ERCOT. We now have, a statewide market. There have been a lot of changes, dramatic changes in the last 15 or 20 years in the utility industry. You used to be able to make an argument for a city to have its own monopoly utility. You can't make that argument anymore. It just doesn't make sense. As far as, and I've already stated my position, I think we could save a lot of money by getting rid of Austin Energy. I don't approve of the way they do their accounting. Let me just quickly, the rate case that we just had. The Austin Energy claimed, you're going to love this, $9 million of subsidies for economic development. They claimed, Austin Energy claimed, that was part of the cost of service. So the independent hearing examiner says, what do you mean, $9 million for economic development? It has absolutely nothing to do with producing electricity. The Samsung people agreed, the independent consumer, the consumer advocate agreed. Basically, everybody thought it was a crazy idea to provide $9 million on your energy bills for the economic development department. But Austin Energy demanded that they include it, so they did. So this is the kind of way they bury cost and they hide costs, and it's very difficult to account for the money. We need to just get rid of it.
Mr. Flannigan.
Well, of course, the challenge, if we were to eliminate Austin Energy, is the 20% of the profits from the energy utility that keep our property taxes low. So it's an absolute asset that our citizens decided so many years ago to start an electric utility. I do think that it should be treated, that the profits should be treated as profits and not divvied up from the Austin Energy side. If we were to privatize, we would have to find 20% cuts. I mean, not even my opponent can come up with a ridiculous proposal that cuts 20% of the budget. So I do think it's an asset to the city to own its utility. And the money that is transferred from Austin Energy, the profits that are transferred into the general fund, I think you could argue could be more transparent if they were just treated as a profit and not tried to be divvied up from the Austin Energy side. But at the end of the day, it's an asset to our community because our generations ago, Austinites had the foresight to create it. And we would be doing a disservice to the taxpayers if we were to give that up.
30 seconds to respond.
As a taxpayer, Austin's changed a lot in 20 years. I would like to have the opportunity to vote on that. The Office of Economic Development, I know people are coming here every day. I see the license plates and they're on the streets. I don't think we need to propose anything about that. They're coming. You know, from the real estate side, I know there are more than 150 per day estimated coming without us doing anything. So I would just like an opportunity to vote again.
Is
I
that
just
a-
say that as an individual.
Is that a question? Do you want to put that to these folks?
I put it to those folks, yes, sir. Thank you. And I bet you I could ask a few out here, and they may agree, just a chance to vote.
Councilmember, let's get your response.
Well, I would certainly support a vote. I think you should have the right to choose whether you want to continue funding a monopoly or go to competitive choice. Other cities have abolished their monopolies, right, and they've opened up to competition. We do need to make some dramatic cuts in the city budget. We're spending way, way too much money. And Mr. Flannigan is wrong about my ability to cut spending in the city. In fact, it wasn't long ago that we had, I think, several council members went out of town, and the fiscal conservatives took over, and we killed $6 million of spending in one meeting.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flannigan.
You didn't
Wow.
kill $6 million in spending in one
Thank
meeting.
you.
You wasted the taxpayers' time for a meeting. And it was embarrassing to us as a city to see the business of the city come to a grinding halt just because a couple of your colleagues were gone. That's an embarrassment. You should not be proud of that. Neither should you be proud of being the one or the two no votes every single time. This is not how you do leadership. And if we were to put it to a vote, we would spend millions of taxpayer dollars to put the vote up to the people, and I guarantee you it would win. And if there was a desire to do it, I'd be happy because I know it would win.
Thank you, sir. Jen Reck.
Bearing in mind the limitations of city government, because as we all know, we have many layers of government, could you please offer specific recommendations that you believe the city of Austin can do to solve the traffic issues, which I know is broad, but from my perspective, that means traffic that doesn't move on MOPAC, traffic, that doesn't move on I-35, and a lack of reliable public transportation.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Flannigan, I believe you go first.
Well, I mean, the challenge for the city is that we don't control all those roads. And
Right.
if we're going to do improvements on MOPAC or 183 or I-35 or even Parmer or 2222 or 620 in District 6, it has to be done in conjunction with TxDOT. So we have to do a better job collaborating with those agencies. We need better representation on CAMPO and CTRMA, which are some regional bodies that drive that conversation. I do support the Mayor Adler's transportation bond. I think it's a step forward to addressing our transportation needs, but I don't think anyone is deluding themselves that it's going to solve all the problems magically. I also support a reworking of the Cap Metro bus routes so that they become more streamlined, much like Houston streamlined their bus routes and they got more ridership and they increased the frequency and it became better service for the community. And Cap Metro is in the beginning of that process now, and I'm excited to see where that process is going to take us. But it will take some building, like in the transportation bond. It'll take some planning, like the Cap Metro bus routes, and it'll take some coordination with TxDOT to work on our major roads and highways.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember.
Well, first, you might want to ask, this is a city that really believes in centralized planning, right? They've been doing that for 70, 80 years. They have a lot of zoning. They like to plan land use for other people's property. So the city has been in charge of planning for a long time. To answer your question about transportation, the city has a master plan for sidewalks, master plan for bicycle lanes, master plan for urban trails, master plan for buses and empty trains. The only plan the city does not have is a congestion relief plan. You might just pause and think about it. Why does the city not have a master plan for congestion relief? I mentioned the other plans they have, plans for sidewalks, plans for urban trails. The city does not want to build roads. They don't want to solve traffic congestion. They want to use it as a social engineering tool to get you into a close, compacted area. Imagine Austin downtown. Get you on a bike, get you on a bus, get you on a train. They're using it for social engineering. They do not have a plan. When I've proposed various things, including I want the city to implement its own plans that it had 30 years ago that make more sense than what we have today. They refuse. They won't do it. We need new management in the city. We're not going to fix the traffic congestion problems because the city doesn't want them fixed. That's the truth of the matter.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, 30 seconds.
There is a limitation in what cities can do based on state law, and I'm aware of that. So what I'm specifically interested in, for example, what would be in a traffic congestion plan? Like, what do you believe, both of you, the city can specifically do within the city's powers to address the issue.
Can I go first?
No, Mr. Flanagan's
goes
got it first. Yeah.
I do want to point out that it's pretty hypocritical to say that you don't support planning and then want to implement a 30-year-old plan. That's a failure on top of a failure. But what I proposed in 2014, which is partly where the mayor's bond goes, is about connected corridors. That when we give people choices in transportation, that includes roads, it includes bikes, it includes buses, it includes Uber and Lyft and TNCs. When we give people choices, then different people can choose different ways to get where they need to go. And those routes and those options need to be as separated as possible so they're not just adding to congestion.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember.
So the quick answer, we don't have time to go in these. They're great questions. I just wish we could do it. But we have SH 45, southwest corner of the city, to try to provide some congestion relief. The city of Austin is cooperating with environmentalists that are still filing lawsuits to stop the construction of some expanded roadways in the southwest part of the city. So what the city can do, first of all, is stop suing people that are trying to build a road. Stop suing people that are trying to build a road. Commissioner Doherty's been trying to build a road for 20 years.
Thank you, sir. Let's go back to District 6 transportation questions, because we do seem to have a few of these. Explain a solution for traffic congestion on 620. I believe, Councilmember, it is your turn to go first.
Great. Bruce Byron, very, very competent engineer with TxDOT, he's presented a corridor study. We have invited him to 2 of our town hall meetings. That's one of our major accomplishments. We've had a large number of town hall meetings. Bruce Byron presented the findings of the 620 corridor study. Basically, we don't have enough right-of-way to handle the traffic that we have. We have got to find an additional right-of-way for 620 traffic congestion relief. And if I get reelected here in November, I'm going to be working with TxDOT for additional right-of-way. We don't have enough room to widen 620. We the people who own our open spaces, we need to stand up and say, look, we need to take 250 feet out of our open space and make it an easement and have it for freeway congestion relief, some kind of expressway. We have got to connect SH 45 at Lakeline Mall and get it connected down to I-35 in the Buda area. We have got to do that. Should have been done 30 years ago. Most grown-up cities are now on their 3rd outer loop. Austin still doesn't have 1 loop. That is just absurd. And it just goes to show the obstructionism of the Austin city government. They hate roads. They don't want to build freeways. They want to pack you into a compact and connected place, put you in a high-rise building. It's just not reality. So my answer is we need to increase right-of-way for bigger freeways.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flanagan.
There is no open space where SH 45 ends at Lakeline Mall. There's no open space there. So when you talk about right-of-way, you're talking about taking people's property. And that's a challenge. Now, you can buy it, but you better get ready to spend a lot of taxpayer dollars to do it. The real challenge for 620, the real option for 620 is not to build a double-decker freeway that ends at Anderson Mill Road like I saw TxDOT propose. That wouldn't actually solve any problems anyway. It would cost billions of dollars. But what we're talking about is the simple solutions, the simple things that address, like reducing the number of driveways that come onto 620. Many of you, I'm sure, have been in car accidents on 620, trying to turn to left or right in the middle of a busy 60-mile-per-hour highway. It's working on signal timing so that once you reduce the number of driveways, then that signal timing can actually have a positive impact. And those simple type of changes are how you're going to fix 620 without it turning into a bunch of apartments. Now, you can go up and down 620 and see those apartments popping up right now. And I guarantee you, if you build a $5 billion road, there's going to be a lot more apartments popping up. You can see what happened in Houston. When they expanded the Katy Freeway to be the widest freeway in the world, within a few years, the traffic was just as it was before because they built a bunch of apartments and stuff because there was this big, shiny new road. So the small options, reducing the curb cuts or the driveways and doing the signal timing can get some better throughput on 620 without turning it into a canyon of apartments.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember, 30 seconds.
So Mr. Flanagan's comments just show he doesn't have engineering thinking. You know, the things he just proposed are Band-Aid approaches that are a joke to the problem, to solving the problem. We can solve the problem of 620. It is extremely expensive because of poor planning and non-existing planning by the city. We do need to probably do some kind of excavation or something. There are options that we can do, but we have got to get environmentalists out of the way, and we have to use our open space for right-of-way to put in expanded freeways. That's the only way to get this done.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flannigan.
As I pointed out to my opponent in 2014, it was engineers that designed the roads we have now. So engineering experience alone doesn't mean you're some magic wizard that can suddenly create a bunch of highways with no cost or no expense or no tax. I mean, still, we're talking about taking people's land and turning 620 into I-10 in Houston. I want you to think about that. That's what we're talking about. And nobody thinks I-10 in Houston is some 5-minute commute. It's a hard choice, and sometimes you do the hard choices.
Thank you, sir. We're going to do one more, and then we'll get to closing statements. What is your opinion on Austin being a sanctuary city? Mr. Flannigan, I believe you go first.
Boy, what a buzzword. Sanctuary city, ultimately, is a county thing. It's about what they do with the jails. It's about how they interact with ICE. What I like to talk about when you're talking about Austin Police Department is you don't ask citizens for their papers. It's no papers, please. That's not what America was founded on. You don't ask people's immigration status if you're pulled over for a traffic ticket. It's also no way to build community, because what you need are residents who are willing to trust your police department so that you can solve those property crimes, so you can solve those violent crimes. Nothing gets accomplished by going down this road of rounding up all the immigrants. That's in no way the values of Austin, and in no way the values of America. You know, when we talk about how we're going to build a community and how we're going to solve these problems, we have to do it together. That's the whole premise of the work that I do with the Northwest Austin Coalition. We can fix our problems together. And when it comes to sanctuary cities, you know, the immigrant community has lower crime rates than any other part of our community. There's absolutely no reason to turn APD into the Gestapo trying to round up anyone who doesn't match the color you like. The real solution is building like community policing and working with your community and doing actual public safety, because right now, even the leaders of the Austin Police Department are not interested in playing the game of federal agents.
Thank you, sir. Council member.
So the way the city of Austin implements sanctuary city policy, which it does, is through a very interesting passive-aggressive style. There are millions of dollars of your money that are being literally, kind of figuratively thrown over a fence to nonprofit organizations for things like immigrant legal services. When I ask on the dais, can you tell me exactly what you mean by immigrant legal services? We have two kinds of immigrants. We have legal immigrants that have documentation from our federal authorities, and we have people that don't. There are two kinds of immigrants. So are you talking about using taxpayer money for the legal immigrants that we want and need, that we've invited in? Or are you talking about spending money on the illegal immigration population? They refuse to answer the question. So there could be at this time millions of dollars of your taxpayer money that is encouraging illegal immigration. And I think it is an outrage. It is a national security issue at this point. The people coming across our border in the south, the other than Mexicans, the OTM as the border says, there are some pretty dangerous things going on in the border. It's a huge public safety issue. We should be vigilant. We should be cooperating with federal authorities to try to catch people, narco-terrorists. We have some serious issues. And what I get out of the majority of council is this feel-good thing. You know, that you should be a sanctuary city because it's feel-good stuff. This is a serious security issue and a fiscal issue.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flannigan.
Well, my opponent is very good at asking questions, but he's not very good at getting answers. You will notice that many times he says, well, I asked the question and they wouldn't tell me, but surely it must be the worst version of the thing that I'm asking. That must be what's actually going on. In fact, when there was a refugee crisis and the question was being asked about how much money the city was spending on refugees, my opponent was railing against it in a public meeting until it was pointed out rightly that the city was spending no money on refugees. So what we need from District 6 is real leadership focused on real solutions.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember.
So that's a false statement that my opponent just made. The truth is you don't know where your money is going. It's very likely that your money is going to subsidize illegal immigration. The point of it is you don't know. We have a huge problem of a lack of transparency in the city, and passive-aggressive bureaucrats that get straightforward answers, straightforward questions, they refuse to answer. This is a serious issue in the city. The truth is you don't know where your money is going.
Thank you, sir. We'll head into wrap up now. Councilmember, you got 2 minutes.
I'm going to ask, Tim Kelly is here, and I want to put out one little page here. I'm just going to spend a minute or two on this. This is going to be an interesting campaign. My opponent has now said 3 or 4 times in public, he's made an absolutely false statement. We've done a public information request to find out what his communications are with the mayor's office. He says the mayor's office says that he put Anderson Mill Road into our bond. It is a false statement. It's a false statement. And I've been barraged at this point. I think this campaign is going to get pretty ugly, and I'm very concerned about it. I have some information I'd like to pass out here that points out a concrete example of the leadership that I bring to this city and county, in this county. I stood up alone and took a lot of ridicule from my political opponents for opposing this horrible downtown boondoggle that was the downtown courthouse. It was a terrible deal. I stood up with Council Member Houston and said, look, we can have a courthouse on the east side of the city that's more accessible, that has plenty of surface parking. We can build it for less money. We should not be building these boondoggles downtown. I took a lot of ridicule from opponents, but the voters agreed with me. I also said in a KUT interview that that expensive property ought to be used for a housing or some other better purpose. And just yesterday, the Travis County Commissioner's Court agreed with me. So in fact, I'm providing leadership for District 6, for the city, and for Travis County. But I do it in a fiscally conservative fashion. I am a fiscal conservative. I'm not apologetic about it. I want to do everything I can to make the city affordable and to get the traffic moving. I'm best qualified to do that. We're going to post my accomplishments here shortly on our website, donzimmerman.org. I hope you'll go and visit. We have an incredible list of accomplishments.
Thank you, sir. Just real fast about that KUT. That's actually a monitor story, but we share it with our partners at KUT.
Okay.
Jimmy, go ahead.
Thank you all for coming here tonight. Thanks to KUT and the Austin Monitor for hosting this debate. You know, this campaign is, it's very clear what's going on. It's very clear. And the work that I've done in our community, the work that I've done advocating on redistricting with the Northwest Austin Coalition to keep Williamson County into a single district, which we accomplished, the work I've done on Anderson Mill Road, which got the road included in the mayor's bond election, $5.5 million, after 30 years of people saying it, and we finally got it done. This is the type of work that District 6 wants. What District 6 doesn't want is wasteful spending caused by governance by lawsuit. What District 6 doesn't want is to be embarrassed by constituents, kids, and clergy being bullied from the dais. And what District 6 doesn't need is our voice to be ignored by abstentions and false promises. District 6 deserves leadership, leadership that can get results, results that I've already gotten. Stopping something that had nothing to do with the city of Austin is not leadership, that's advocacy. We are not hiring, as the citizens, an advocate to sit on city council. We're hiring a leader who can count to 6, who can get the votes we need to get the problems addressed. That's the type of work that I've been doing, and it's the type of work that I will do. And as District 6, we have an opportunity to lead. We have an opportunity to lead on these issues, to both fix the problems that we face here on traffic, pedestrian safety, utility rates, property crime, but also to make Austin a better place for all of us. And that's the work that I promised you that I will do and that you will help me do together.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for coming. On behalf of the Monitor, KUT, and Glass House Policy, thank you all for being a part of our fun. We'll see you around.